Welcome back to Color Review, where you suggest movies, I watch them during the day, and tell my wife I'm working. Well, I presented the option over on Instagram, and you voted, and by a resounding victory, 1917 won for the next Color Review. So let's talk about this one-shot wonder. If you aren't familiar, 1917 is presented like you experience the film as a single continuous shot. Obviously, it wasn't actually done in all one shot, but that is how it is presented to us, which produces some interesting problems as far as color goes. First of all, the film starts towards the end of a day. It goes through an evening and then the morning. So in the course of about 2 hours, we're traveling through a lot more time than just those 2 hours. So the question is, how do we show different periods of time and where does the color transition? So those are largely gonna be the two factors that we're gonna be looking at. One, what were their color choices? And two, where were those moments of transition where we can see the color moving from one place to the next? If you didn't know already, Roger Deakins was the cinematographer behind the film, and he kind of won an Oscar for it, so it's kind of a big deal. I'm pulling out my phone because I want to get this information right. It was filmed on the Arri Alexa Mini LF large format, and here's what I think is interesting. It was actually filmed on two different lenses. They were both Arri Signature Primes, a 35mm and a 40mm 1.8. So I find that fascinating. Before doing this color review, I didn't actually know it was shot on two separate lenses. So that's just some interesting trivia for you. Although I did see this movie in theaters, admittedly it's been long enough that I can't quite remember all of the artistic choices they made, so I am so excited to see this film again. All right, let's do this. What a movie. All right, I was grabbing stills throughout the whole thing. Let me transition around and we'll start taking a look at the movie. Welcome to the desk. Let's see some of the looks they used in the film, some of those key transition pieces, and also how they ended it. I really love how they ended it. So this is the first look. This is how they open the film, and it's kind of what, when people think of the 1917 look, this is usually what they're talking about. So you'll notice that the highlights and the white points are quite this kind of like sickly green yellow. And just as for comparison, like right here, that's what white would look like. So you can see how much different the white point is in the image than what true white would be. Now, skin tones aren't something that constantly ride that like skin tone line throughout the film, but you can see in this scene that they still maintain pretty decent skin tone. As far as the midtones go, I really like these khaki colors that they continue to put into the image. I think it's a nice palette when you take some of the warmer leather tones with the khaki of their uniform. You'll also notice on some of the helmets or some of the more neutral parts of the image that they tend to lean a little blue. So you can see it's got the greenish blue in there. If we go to a darker point, you'll see it's a little more deep. It's not navy, it's kind of that more aqua-ish blue, as well as some of these boxes over here. So you still get some nice color contrast, although it's fitting within this kind of like blue, khaki, and sickly white yellow up top. Let me grab the deepest part of the image just as a reference. So yep, pretty dark, pretty neutral, maybe just a tiny bit warm. Now, if you remember in the story, what they do is they start at the tree and they walk down and eventually they get into this bunker where their mission is set for them. So this is that bunker scene. And what I like about it is, although it's lit with what feels like this warm firelight, the firelight feels like a dangerous fire. It doesn't feel like a safe, warm environment. And I think that's partially what they're doing with the shadows. So if you notice the shadows, although they are a tiny bit warm, they still remain rather desaturated. Now it's hard to pull a white point of this image, but what I can do is pull the brightest parts of this image. So we have some really warm, orange, saturated skin tones. Looks like we still get skin tones in the back, but it starts to drop off. The uniform, we still get some of that olive tone in the uniform. Is this maybe just a tiny bit of red that pops through? For the most part, this very warm image where we start to lose the saturation as we head towards the shadows. What I like about what they did with this bunker is, although often when you go with warm tones, things can feel like friendly or inviting, but because they put the key light kind of to the side and maybe even a little low, like as I look at the path of this light, it almost looks like it's kind of like just below the actor's face. So because of the light placement and the desaturated shadows, it doesn't feel warm and inviting. It feels like there's some danger, and it's lit by a low firelight. So the question is, how do we get from the bunker back out to daylight? Now, I'm gonna skip a little bit. You'll remember that the way the movie works is these two soldiers get recruited for this mission. They go through this mission, they cross through no man's land, and then they enter the enemy bunker, which has been deserted. Now, this is in that enemy bunker, but the bunker look is still really similar. It's just a little more desaturated because it's very dusty. So let's watch. So the question is, how do we get from the bunker to the outside? And it happens right here. So you'll see that right now the scene is being key lit by they call them torches, but we in America, we like to call them flashlights, right? So the camera pans around and we see our first glint of daylight. Now you'll notice that daylight is the correct color of the sky based on the initial daylight look. But the problem is, how do we get out of this dusty key light into daylight? And watch this. You'll notice the transition happens, and I believe in production a cut happens right when this bunch of dirt falls. And you notice when the dirt falls, the flashlights go out, and in that moment, that's when the color transition happens. So here we go. Ready? Dirt falls, and their flashlights go out, and all of a sudden the shadows shift to that mid-tone blue, and we're back in the daylight look. Let's do that one more time, just in case you didn't catch it. Flashlight helps us maintain the bunker look, but you see the sky outside. We're gonna watch from the dirt. Dirt falls, look changes, midtones and shadows start leaning blue for our outside look, and we then successfully transition to the exterior look. It's really nice how they did this, right? They used both the natural cut of the dirt falling and the lights turning off of the flashlights to be this instant moment where we can transition the look between the bunker and the outside. Now that daylight look takes us for a long while in the film. There's minor tweaks. They emphasize some grass and nature a little bit in the middle. They also start to desaturate things as it starts getting a little more dusk, but eventually we get to night. And their core night look is based off this massive fire that is happening in the town that the main character is walking through. And I mean, look at this. What a stunning piece of cinematography, right? You'll notice that although the highlights are clipping, we're not actually hitting pure white, right? Like they're still tinted in the right direction. The midtones are all leaning towards this warm. I love this gorgeous orange fall off that we get. And for the shadows, we're getting a little bit of that warm flaring through. It looks like on the right side, we pretty much hit we just about hit pure black. And let's see, the light's wrapping around nicely around his silhouette, so we do get a little bit of light there. But it's just this gorgeous, warm, golden tones of night. Now, if you remember in the story, he gets confronted by some German soldiers and he eventually runs out of this town and into a nearby river. But the sun is rising at this time. So how do we go from complete darkness to sunrise? Like here's the look that we're gonna eventually end up at. We end up right here. And if you look between these two, like you get warm firelight, totally dead of night, to this morning blue look. It's like, so how do we transition between these two? And the way that we transition between these two is in this really clever way. So this is the critical transition point in the film. You'll notice up in the sky. Do you see the sky? It's still black. Well, this is where the transition starts to happen. Although this next little bit is keyed by that big fire, the sky is where we start to introduce that blue change. So watch this. Our main character is gonna run. He's gonna cut left and keep an eye out for that sky, right? We're following him, and then as the camera pans to the left, look at the sky, boom, right there. That is where we get our first image of blue. So he's gonna continue running, away from the guards. I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit. And you'll notice the further he gets away from that core fire, the more they introduce the blue of the night. And eventually he completely leaves that key light and we're in the new blue look. So here we are at the final scene of the film, and I realize that this is all one shot, but I think of this as the final scene. We've returned largely to our standard daylight look, but there's some interesting color changes that happen in this final little bit that I want you to pay attention to. And it all starts with this. The soldier reaches out his hand and there's a handshake. Look at the grass. All of a sudden, grass and a little bit of warmth is inserted into the image and the main character's khaki jacket. Now, the changes hold here for a little bit while he walks over to the tree. Now, I'm gonna speed this up a little bit while he walks, just because not much happens. So he walks, And then as he sits down, this is the first rest that he gets for pretty much the entire film. And as he sits down, watch the grass and the image, saturation boost. There's a richness to that grass that is finally experienced. We don't really get this in the film, that warm green of nature. So it holds here for a little bit, but as soon as he starts opening up his book, we see a little extra, there we go, there's a little more skin tone and warmth. So his skin tone's getting a little more warmth, the grass is getting warmer as well. And in a little bit, it's gonna pan up to his face. And when it pans up to his face, watch, the grass will start to desaturate. So here we go, grass starts to desaturate, but the highlights and the warmth starts to come into his face and the sky. We get a clean blue in the sky rather than that green blue. So we move the focus to his face and the film ends. Isn't that incredible, the changes that can happen? And if you've seen the film, like if you're not really paying attention, they motivate these changes in color in a way that just brings life to the image. It helps us start to feel those elements of that richness and life and just the warmth of the sun. Like we really didn't feel the warmth of the sun throughout the film until that last little bit. If I had a hat, I would take it off because hats off to Roger Deakins and the incredible work of the team on this film. Now, if you want to look at these frames for yourself, maybe use them for inspiration or mood boards, I actually pulled more frames than we talked about today, as well as the color palette. You can go to the resource link in the description, and it's just a free download. I've packaged them all in a zip file that you can have easy access to. If you like this color review, I would recommend hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell. I'm releasing a color review every month, so if you do that, then you will not miss it along the way. If you want to help decide the next film, follow me on Instagram, and there I will be doing polls on which movie will come next. As well as, hey, if you just want to talk or hang out, there is a virtual coffee link in the description. Just click that and it will find a time on both of our schedules where we can just hang out and chat for a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the other things that they did well in 1917. So drop a comment below and I'd love to keep talking. All right, see you friends.